I never thought saying no to a man worth billions would change my life forever. One dinner invitation I declined 3 years ago has turned into an obsession that's following me across continents. This isn't a love story, it's a warning. Hey there. I never thought I'd be sitting here telling you this story, but some experiences are too important not to share. I'm Naomi, 32 years old, and yes, I'm that black woman who walked away from a billionaire's love and somehow became his obsession. Before I dive into the madness, let me tell you a bit about myself. I've always been the girl with big dreams and the determination to match. After graduating from Howard with honors, I climbed my way through the tech marketing world, starting from social media coordinator to becoming the youngest marketing director at one of Silicon Valley's fastest-growing startups. Those late nights practicing pitches in my mirror and declining happy hours to refine campaign strategies, they paid off. I built my reputation on creativity and data-driven decisions, not on who I knew or dated. 3 years ago, my career was soaring. New office with a view, team of 15 under my leadership, and industry awards lining my bookshelf. I was living that she made it life everyone talks about on Instagram. Then I met him, and everything changed. Stay with me through this wild journey that proves money can't buy everything, especially not me. And trust me, what I'm about to share might save you from the same nightmare. Because when a man who can buy anything sets his sights on the one thing that says no, that's when you see who they really are. It was at the Future of Tech Summit in San Francisco when our paths first crossed. I was representing my company, proudly showcasing our latest marketing campaign that had increased client acquisition by 200% that quarter. The convention center buzzed with innovation and ambition, my natural habitat. I was in my element, dressed in my power suit, hair in a perfect twist-out, commanding attention with every gesture and word. Then I noticed him watching me from across the showroom floor. Richard Chen. Not the tallest man in the room, but somehow the most magnetic. His presence was understated yet unmissable. Simple charcoal suit that probably cost more than my rent. No flashy watch or accessories. Just calm confidence and those intense eyes that seemed to analyze everything they landed on. Your presentation was impressive, he said, approaching me after my panel discussion. No introduction needed. Everyone knew who he was. The tech mogul, whose net worth had 4 commas, whose companies were reshaping how the world communicated. You have a unique perspective on consumer psychology that my team has been missing. I thanked him professionally, expecting the conversation to end there, but he stayed, asking thoughtful questions about my methodologies, challenging my assumptions in ways that made me think deeper, not in ways meant to diminish me like so many men in tech often do. For those 20 minutes, he treated me like an intellectual equal. I remember thinking, maybe not all billionaires are self-absorbed jerks. We exchanged business cards. Well, I gave him mine. He simply told me his personal assistant would reach out. The next day, an email arrived inviting me to consult on a project for one of his smaller companies. The pay was generous, the opportunity unreal. Of course I said yes. Looking back, I should have noticed how he casually mentioned having watched my previous speaking engagements online, or how he already knew which college I'd attended before I mentioned it. At the time, I chalked it up to due diligence. Successful people do their homework, right? Our professional relationship developed over weekly strategy calls. He always scheduled them himself, not through assistants like most executives do. Always in the evening, always running longer than planned. I was flattered by his respect for my expertise, blind to the boundary testing that had already begun. The red flags were there in how he'd casually drop personal details about my life into conversation. I noticed you like Ethiopian food, he once said, having never discussed restaurants with him. I brushed it off, focusing instead on the career opportunity of a lifetime that had fallen into my lap. If only I'd recognized the difference between appreciation and acquisition in those early days. I first noticed something shifting about 3 months into our working relationship. What began as professional admiration was transforming into something more deliberate. The email started arriving at odd hours, 2 a.m. suggestions about campaign ideas that could have waited until morning. Then came the compliments that strayed beyond my work. "That color suits your complexion perfectly," after a video call, or "Your laugh is quite captivating," dropped casually into conversations about metrics. The gift started small, a premium subscription to a data analytics platform I had mentioned once. "To help with your work," the note read. Thoughtful, perhaps, but unsolicited. Then came the limited edition marketing book I'd been searching for, somehow delivered to my personal address that I'd never shared with him. When I asked how he knew, he simply smiled through the screen and said, "I have good researchers." One Tuesday morning, my office reception called about a delivery. I walked out to find a cascade of orchids, my favorite flowers, though I couldn't remember telling him that, with a handwritten note inviting me to dinner in New York. Private jet arranged, hotel suite booked, all to discuss a potential executive position at his flagship company. The salary figure he'd scribbled made my heart race, but something in my gut twisted uncomfortably. I declined politely, explaining I had commitments I couldn't break. In truth, I wasn't ready to blur the already smudging line between our professional and personal interactions. His response seemed gracious enough. "I understand. Perhaps another time." But the video call we had scheduled for that Friday was suddenly cancelled without explanation. When we eventually reconnected, something had changed in his demeanor. His smile didn't reach his eyes. He listened less, spoke more, interrupted me twice, something he'd never done before. The respect that had made our professional relationship special was subtly eroding, replaced by a coldness when he didn't get his way. 2 weeks later, a headhunter contacted me about a dream opportunity in Chicago. Higher position, double the salary, leading a global team. It felt like the universe opening a door exactly when I needed an exit. What I didn't know then was that Richard had connections to the parent company, something I only discovered through casual conversation with my new CEO months later. "Richard Chen gave you quite the recommendation," he mentioned during lunch. "Said letting you go was one of his regrets, but you'd be perfect for us." Letting me go? I had never been his to release, but I smiled and thanked him for the information, while a familiar uneasiness settled in my stomach. I tried convincing myself it was coincidence, that perhaps Richard truly wanted the best for my career. I was building conspiracy theories about a man who simply recognized talent, right? But as I packed up my San Francisco apartment, my phone chimed with a text from an unknown number. "Chicago has wonderful restaurants. I look forward to finally having that dinner." No signature needed. My fresh start in Chicago felt exhilarating. New city, new role, new people, and most importantly, distance from whatever strange dynamic had been developing with Richard. For the first 2 months, I breathed easier. My team respected me, my ideas flourished, and I started making friends outside of work. Normal, wonderful, regular salary friends who talked about regular life things, not acquisitions and market shares. Then came the tech conference in Detroit. As I walked through the exhibition hall, there he was, Richard, speaking with vendors near my company's booth. Our eyes met across the crowd, and he smiled like finding me was the most natural coincidence in the world. Later, he explained he'd been considering investing in several companies at the event. A reasonable explanation, but the prickle on the back of my neck didn't subside. "We should catch up," he said casually, as though we were old friends. "I'm actually thinking of opening an innovation hub in Chicago. Perhaps you could offer some insights about the local market over dinner." I made a polite excuse and kept my distance for the remainder of the conference. But the following week, our company announced a new partnership with one of Richard's subsidiaries, a deal that meant I would need to collaborate with his team regularly. In our first joint meeting, He introduced me to everyone as the marketing genius who got away, his eyes never leaving mine as uncomfortable laughter rippled through the room. The digital footprints came next. LinkedIn notifications showing he had viewed my profile repeatedly. Instagram follow requests from anonymous accounts that somehow knew to send messages addressing me by my childhood nickname. Friends in common industries mentioning, "Richard was asking about you," with a curious tilt to their heads. The breaking point came when my mother called, excited about a generous donation made to her church's building fund. "The donor asked specifically about you," she gushed. "Such a nice man, that Mr. Chen. Said he knew you from work and wanted to support causes important to your family." I felt the world tilt sideways. He had found my family, my roots, my community, spaces that had nothing to do with our professional connection. That night, I checked my digital footprint more carefully and discovered login attempts to my email from unfamiliar IP addresses. My personal data was being tracked, my movements monitored through check-ins and tagged photos. During a company event in downtown Chicago, I spotted him at the bar. I hadn't mentioned the event on any public platforms. When I confronted him, his smile never wavered. "You look surprised to see me," he said, swirling expensive scotch in a crystal glass. "Don't be. I'm simply investing in Chicago's future. And yours?" "My future is my own to determine," I responded, keeping my voice steady despite the hammering in my chest. "Is it?" he asked, head tilted slightly. "I've found that futures are simply investments waiting for the right buyer, and I'm very patient with my investments, Naomi." He knew exactly what he was doing. This wasn't love or even infatuation. It was ownership he sought. The thing about boundaries is, once someone shows they don't respect them, they're telling you exactly who they are. And Richard had just shown me he considered my no merely a negotiating position. The next few months became a careful dance of avoidance and documentation. Every unexpected appearance, every coincidental encounter, every gift sent to my office, I recorded it all. Screenshots of strange messages, notes from friends about his inquiries, details of donations made in my name without permission. What had once felt like flattering attention had morphed into something that kept me checking my rearview mirror and sleeping with my location services turned off. The partnership between our companies meant I couldn't completely cut contact, but I made sure we were never alone. Always in groups, always in public, always with my own transportation secured. I changed my phone number twice. I varied my routes home. I became the kind of person who checked under her car before getting in, not out of paranoia, but out of pattern recognition. Then came the charity gala. My company had purchased a table to support education initiatives in underserved communities, a cause close to my heart. I wore a gold gown that made me feel powerful, ready to network and contribute to something meaningful. The evening was going beautifully until the donation announcements. And our final donation of the evening, a remarkable $5 million from Richard Chen, dedicated, and I quote, "to the brilliant Naomi, whose passion for education inspired this gift." The spotlight found me in the crowd. Applause erupted while my blood turned to ice. I hadn't told him about this event. I hadn't shared my passion for education with him. And now, in front of Chicago's entire business elite, he had publicly tethered his name to mine without consent. After the ceremony, he approached, champagne flutes in hand. "A toast to making a difference together," he said, as though we were partners in this. Something in me snapped. Years of conditioning to be polite, to not make scenes, to handle uncomfortable situations with grace. All of it evaporated in that moment. "There is no together, Richard," I said, loud enough for nearby groups to hear. "There never was, and there never will be. Your money doesn't give you the right to insert yourself into my life. Not my career, not my causes, not my family. This stops now." His expression hardened, that perfect veneer cracking for just a second. "You're being emotional," he said dismissively. I'm simply trying to help your career. My career was fine before you, and it will be fine after you, I replied. What you're doing isn't help, it's harassment, and I've documented all of it. I handed him a sealed envelope. Inside was a formal cease and desist letter from my attorney, along with printed evidence of his pattern of behavior. The next envelope goes to the board of your company, the media, and the police. Your choice. For the first time, I saw genuine surprise in his eyes. Men like Richard aren't used to consequences. They're used to throwing money at problems until they disappear. But I wasn't a problem to be solved or a challenge to be overcome. I was a human being saying no. As I walked away, he called after me. You need me more than you realize. Look how far you've come because of my interest in you. I turned, meeting his gaze one final time. No, Richard, I've come this far despite it. It's been 14 months since that night. The cease and desist letter worked, mostly. There were a few probing attempts through mutual connections, but when those didn't work, the gifts and coincidences finally stopped. I've since started my own consulting firm, working with companies that value my expertise, not my availability for dinner. What I learned through all this isn't just about one wealthy man with boundary issues. It's about recognizing your own worth beyond what others want from you. It's about understanding that real respect looks like accepting no the first time. It's about building a support system of people who see your humanity, not your potential usefulness. I share this story not because it's unique, but because it isn't. So many of us, especially Black women, are expected to feel grateful for attention, opportunities, or advancement, even when they come with hidden price tags. We're taught to stay quiet, to not make waves, to just be thankful. But your peace is non-negotiable. Your boundaries aren't suggestions. And your worth isn't determined by who wants you or what they'll do to have you. Share this story if you've been through something similar or know someone who needs to hear it. Let's build a community where we protect each other's peace. Because some prices are too high, no matter how many billions are on the table.